This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Pallet. The fire rises. Today we're going to be taking a look at Letters by Logan 96. This can be found at toospooky.com. Link in the description box. Let's get right into it. I have spent all of my life in Birmingham. Even the people are haunted. Sometimes I wonder what I'm doing with my life, whether I should leave and get a change of scenery or stay and try to get my life back together. My parents died recently. They were on a plane to Italy on vacation. Their plane crashed and everyone on board died. It wasn't pilot error like everyone in the media would like you to believe. Black box audio is usually public, but the audio for Birmingham Airline flight 1357 was never released and kept from the public. Okay. A lot of things going on here in the opening. It turns out we're very conspiratorial minded. We think that there is a bigger conspiracy at play to the parents' death. And this could go one of two ways. It could be that there is something to the audio not being released, and there could be grief and trying to understand what is unexplainable, what is a freak tragedy happening, and a mind just can't wrap around that. That's an ambiguity that we have at the beginning. That's good. And then we also have, trying to get my life back together and blah, blah, blah. This stuff is relatable. They want to change the scenery to get away, to make them forget about what happened to their parents. And they don't know whether to embrace those conspiratorial thoughts or to put them away. That's a good kind of way to summarize the beginning of this. And so this is working pretty well for me so far. I would tighten up the grammatical stuff, throw one more comma in there because there was one missing. But I like the general premise. Of course, the theories came flooding in like water through a broken dam, despite the best efforts of the government to sweep this under the rug. I and other loved ones demanded answers. We got none until the audio was leaked, and that only brought up more scary unanswered questions. I didn't listen to the audio myself. I thought I couldn't go through that. I read about it on a forum. From what I read, it sounded like someone was making up a story about what they heard. The posts said that the pilots were just having an ordinary conversation, and then they both noticed these glowing balls of white, green, and blue. It didn't look like any aircraft they were aware of. Alright, so that seems a little weird to me that they wouldn't listen to the audio. I would assume that you would listen to the audio even if it would be painful because you would be getting answers because you're demanding answers. So that doesn't quite line up. That's a little weird to me. The government sweeping it under the rug, not so much. They're like to be opaque. That's not surprising. Saying that you have scary unanswered questions, I'm not a fan of that either. Don't tell me to be scared of this. Let me inform my own decision, come to my own conclusions. So, more problematic here. The audio went dead silent. Then the two pilots started confessing all their wrongdoings, everything they had ever done spewed out of their mouths. The rest of the recording was just everyone screaming. I thought it was ridiculous, but the others who had listened to the audio had come to the same conciseness, maybe that's not, I'm trying to figure out conciseness, came to the same conciseness. I'm not sure what that means. I think that might be a typo. Giving up on finding the answer, I had a mock funeral, which I was the only one that went. Seeing that we had no other family, it was up to me to get their house cleaned up and ready to sell. I was not looking forward to the probate process. So before we're talking about other loved ones that showed up, but there's no family or loved ones at the funeral besides the narrator themselves. That's a little weird. But not wanting to go through a funeral, that's sensible. Or the probate process, etc., etc. One day I drove over there. The house was a poor facsimile of what it used to be. What once was a lush, well-kept lawn was now overgrown with yellowed grass. Thankfully, the house and the second garage across from it was made of brick. I fear to imagine what shape they'd be in if they hadn't been built with brick. As I walked up the pathway to the front door, memories flashed through my mind like lightning. Me and my dad tossing the ball when I was 10. Me walking the dog around the house with Mom when I was 12. Memories are very important, especially vivid ones. Very idyllic. The idea that this house is made out of brick. Brick is indeed a lot more resilient. It's just crazy. You see how quickly houses can deteriorate, but when you make it out of brick, that's just such a solid material. And the idea that would stick out across, yellow grass, is interesting. It's visual, importantly. The memories faded, and the memory remains, but it faded and reality sunk in. I'd never be able to make memories with him again. I was over everything up until this point. My knees weak, arms heavy. My knees buckled, and I dropped to the ground, tears streaming down my face, and I couldn't control it anymore. They were gone forever. Nothing could change that. I picked myself up off the floor, and entered the house. It was eerie being in the house for the first time in years. The inside of the house didn't look abandoned. Of me, felt like Mom and Dad were still in their bedroom or living room. Bedrooms, yeah, they're separate. That's me, not the story. But what I would say is maybe we need some sentence here that is just along the lines of, before they go into the house, I did my best to compose myself. Something along those lines to indicate a passage of time or a coping mechanism coming into place. The idea that they're just kind of like picking themselves up, but they're still kind of like crying profusely. Not good. We need to, make that transition a little bit smoother. And that's an easy fix. Canned food and boxed food, maybe just canned and boxed food instead of food twice, was still in the cabinets. Mouse droppings lay on the floor. The whole house smelled like shit. I would say smelled like shit, yes, but I would maybe get a little more specific as to like how it smelled bad. There's, kind of like dusty, musty kind of shit, mildewy, there's more qualitative things to say than shit. So far I'm finding that a decent premise, but could be punched up a little bit, and just a little bit of logic work here. I held my breath and trudged forward to the bedrooms to look for my parents' financial information. After a few minutes of rummaging through their bedroom, I found paperwork. Also, I found something else, a box of letters that I have never seen before, written by people I've never met. Okay, so that's an interesting premise. People that you have never met. Letter 1. Dear Uncle Tony, November 14th, 1989. Happy birthday, Uncle Tony. Love is not something you can see. Love is something you can feel deep inside your heart, and I love you. Love, Lorraine. Really strange. The letter is addressed to my father, but he and my mother didn't have any siblings. Why lie? Did he have a falling out, and as a result didn't want anything else to do with his family? Anger flooded my body. I have been lied to my whole life. I've been kept away from family that could have been a part of my life due to some possible petty grudge. I calmed down, reminding myself that I knew nothing and was working myself up by jumping to conclusions. The only way I'd find out is if I read further. Okay, so very short letter, and then we get this, anger that is very melodramatic. So the question is the character being melodramatic, or is the story being melodramatic? I think the story is, in the way that I am perceiving it, more so than the character is possibly bipolar or has trouble controlling their emotions. So I would either say, if your intention is to make the story melodramatic, maybe try... I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. But if you want to make the character themselves melodramatic, that's a hard thing to like find a way to communicate. Like, look, it's the character being melodramatic, not the story. So that's something to consider. Letter 2. Dear Uncle Tony, November 28th, 1989. I really like staying over and spending time with you and Aunt Pam, but it really scares me that monster comes down from the sky and watches me through my window. When it taps on the glass, I cover myself with my blanket and turn over, but it just keeps tapping. Lorraine. Okay, so now this is the response. Chills ran up and down my spine with that one. I could barely hold the piece of paper because my hand was shaking so bad. When I was a boy, I remember seeing something drop from the sky and watch me from the window. Several glowing white, green, and blue orbs pressed against the glass. It was so surreal, I thought it was just a really vivid dream. I'd get so many horrible memories while that thing stared at me. I lay there and cry for hours, too scared to call for help. I still remember that awful tapping. This is really, really losing me, because the idea that an adult is seeing this and then like the melodramatic chills ran up and down my spine, we're being given a very distinct image. It's not foggy. You were seeing what the monster is so clearly. A monster from the sky, but then it's like glowing orbs. Is there going to be significance to the white, green, blue color of the orbs pressing against the glass? I don't know how to feel about all of this, to be honest. It seems like I can't really get an idea of where it's going or suspicions to it. Letter 3, Dear Uncle Tony, December 1st, 1989. The monsters keep coming, and this time he was really mean. He made me bump my head. I guess I deserve it, though. When I saw him, I remembered when I broke Mom's vase and lied about it, Lorraine. Maybe these aren't adults, but obviously what we're meant to assume is that these orbs hurt the plane, and then, it's something that's tracked the family or something along those lines. Letter 4, to Tony, December 4th, 1989. I'm happy to let Lorraine spend the weekend over your house. Your family, after all, and I want her to know her uncle and aunt. But Lorraine came home Sunday with bruises on her forehead. Please make sure you keep an eye on her when she's playing. Are you letting her watch horror movies? Lorraine keeps saying that there's a monster that watches her through her window at night. Please make sure she isn't watching horror movies, Suzanne. So this is possibly the reason for the falling out, and that's a nice detail, the idea that would cause family tensions. The monster itself, though, or whatever it is, alien, whatever this being of 3 orbs is not compelling to me, but the idea that this is causing family tension is a good concept. Letter 5, Dear Pam, December 18th, 1989. For whatever reason, Tony hasn't bothered to listen to me. I'm looking forward to having Xmas with you, but Lorraine has been getting bruises in stranger places. How is she getting hurt so much, Suzanne? Letter 6, Dear Pam, January 1st, 1990. I had a lot of fun with you at your house during the holidays. I loved the sweater you got me, and Lorraine loved all the toys she got. When I stayed the night, I kept hearing tapping when I was trying to sleep. At first, I tried to ignore it, but couldn't. Annoyed, I turned to my window to see what was causing the tapping. Orbs pressed against the glass, multicolored glowing orbs. I had never seen anything like that before. There should be a period there, a comma there, because those are 2 different ideas. I was paralyzed, eyes glued to this thing at the window. The overwhelming feeling of dread consumed my whole body. All of a sudden, all the horrible things I had done through my life flashed through my head like lightning. Cheating on my high school boyfriend at prom? What? Whoa, that's crazy. So you're saying that you went to a guy with prom, and then at the prom dumpster fucked another dude? Wow, that's shitty. Setting up a nemesis in college to be preyed upon by a group of drunk, horny frat boys? What? So just getting someone date raped, luring my boss into having an affair, then blackmailing him after, so many more. This person is a terrible person. Suzanne is a shitty person, talking about like, don't let my kid watch horror movies and just fucking cheating on people. Oh, terrible stuff. Tears streamed down my face. This thing knew me inside and out. It was inside my head and was using my memories to punish me for what I had done. Also, it dug up traumatic events I worked so hard to forget. Feelings of self-loathing washed over me as I got the urge to hurt myself. Images of me slitting my wrist or killing myself in other ways filled my mind. I wanted to die. Eventually, I was released from its trance and found I was bleeding from my right wrist. I clawed on my hand very severely with my left. Suzanne. Okay, so every time that these orbs are being described, it's melodramatic and straightforward. We're not getting any obfuscation to this. We're not getting, the tension of like, what could that be? What is that in the distance? What's that through the fog? It's always very direct and in your face. And that's something that I'm not a fan of. I wish that it was something more ambiguous. It's kind of reminding me of when people fail to find a interesting way to introduce Slender Man, and they're just like, it was a man in a suit. He didn't seem to have a fate. Like, it's too obvious. You need to romance me a little bit to get me on board with the idea of glowing orbs from who knows where that essentially have the penance stare of Ghost Rider, doing the Ghost Rider penance stare where it makes you feel terrible for all the things you've done. So this is, it's at a breakneck pace, and I don't know why you would write a letter confessing to all of these things unless you had, broken up with your husband or whatever. Why Suzanne would be saying this unless she broke up with her husband, because then there's written proof that she had an affair and that she's, not committed to people, etc., etc. Letter 7, Dear Tony and Pam, January 15th, 1990, and that would be when I was exactly 6 days old. Dear Tony and Pam, I will no longer allow Lorraine at your house. What happened the last time she stayed over your house was unacceptable. I trusted you two to take care of her. You will never see her again. Never again see her or me. We're moving and leaving this piece of shit town behind for good. Suzanne. Okay, so potentially what happened has something to do with the orbs, but Suzanne knows about the orbs, so why is she concerned about the family doing something bad? Why is she concerned about Tony and Pam doing something bad when they know full well that there's these weird orbs? And believe in them and have been pentenced stared by them. That was the last of the letters. I just sat there for a while feeling confused and numb. Why I wasn't told about these relatives, and what happened that made them want to cut mom and dad off forever. I needed answers, so I went through the box again, hoping to find something that would give me closure. I did, but this one wasn't sent, and half of it was missing due to being ripped in half. Okay, now we're getting to the part where we're going to need some concrete answers, so I hope that this is going to give us some sort of concrete idea, realm of thinking about these orbs. Dear Suzanne, February 1st, 1990. I'm sorry you feel that way and wish you would reconsider. Lorraine is a joy to have at the house, and Pam and I will miss her greatly. I have no memories of doing anything to Lorraine or would ever lay a finger on her. I'm concerned with one of the letters you send me. It was dated on January 1st of this year. You mentioned that you saw some monster at your window. Suzanne, I need to know if you've been taking your meds. You know what happens when you stop taking your medication. You need to reconsider this. I am very afraid for the child's well-being. If I discover that you've been off your meds, I will That's the end of the letter. By the way the letter was written, it looked like Dad was threatening this Suzanne person. I set the box of letters aside and looked all over the house for the other half of the letter. I found nothing. There was no closure for me with no knowledge of other family members I had to lead to any answers. I gave up. So right here we're getting the paragraph from the letter, then, and that's in italics. Then we have the explanation. That's the end of the letter. I would have no concrete answers. Indentation, paragraph break. I gave up. Next paragraph. So the I gave up is given extra weight since it's a single 3-word paragraph on its own, and that is very effective. That hopelessness is conveyed in that little paragraph break. What I will say is that I don't know how to feel about the off your meds kind of thing. You know what? I take that back. The off your meds thing is kind of working because it's acting as a concern, but a threat at the same time of like, you know, maybe I'll report you to Child Protective Services or something along those lines. The tension of the family here is what's the best part. I would play that up. I would highlight that. And I think that the glowing orbs are kind of getting in the way of that, unless something in these last 5 paragraphs really sell me on the essential nature of these orbs to the story, because I don't see how they're important to it, or how them being real and causing the plane crash is important. The important thing is the family tension, and I think that should be punched up a little bit and focused on. I want to know a little bit more about Lorraine and what kind of a child she is, because we're not getting a whole lot of personality in her. We're kind of getting a good idea of who Suzanne is, a decent idea of who, either Tony or, presumably Tony, but maybe his wife Pam as well, who they are. But I would want to know a little bit more about Lorraine, because something bad is happening to her and I should be concerned for her. On the way home, I kept getting this feeling that I was being watched. I took my eyes off the road for a minute and looked up. Horrible glowing balls of light filled the sky. I couldn't see any any stars or a night sky. I just saw a glow in the dark. Terrible white, green, and blue colors were the sky. This horrible feeling of melancholy, regret, and self-loathing washed over me. Tears waterfalled down my cheeks. I began punching the steering wheel, frustrated with my very own existence, forcing the car to honk over and over again. The light began to morph into these faces of everyone I've wronged in my life. My first girlfriend who I cheated on. Man, this is just a very unfaithful family. Infidelatory family? Okay, there's something there. I know there's a word for that. My ex-best friend, who I left for dead after we got into a car accident when we were 17. My parents, I stole thousands of dollars to help support a nasty drug and gambling addiction I had when I was younger. Man, I don't know how I feel about the use of all of these, like infidelity and nasty drug habits and things of that nature, because they're being mentioned, but they're not being described. I want to be shown the drug habit and how it affected someone and over a prolonged period of time, with examples of its repercussions. Same thing with cheating on somebody. These are things that are serious, and I want to know about them. I think skipping over them by just mentioning them is not doing them justice. All of the voices filled my ears. I could hear them inside my skull screaming and cursing my name, promising to get back at me. I couldn't take it anymore and began clawing at my face. I clawed until I bled and continued to claw and scratch. Blood and chunks of flesh were packed underneath my fingernails. I felt lightheaded, and soon everything faded to black. That's a problem. We really got to avoid the fading to black. Fading to black is not good. It's a way to, I don't like it. It's a crutch that you see in some of the later Silent Hill games. It's not a good horror crutch to fall back on, honestly. I woke up in the hospital room with my head wrapped in gauze. Doctor said that I clawed off half my face. They said I was in a car crash. Of course, I knew that wasn't the truth. My bed was close to the window. With being bored with what was on TV, I turned my head out to look at and take in some scenery. Why wouldn't you be in a car crash? I mean, you were driving in a car and everything faded to black. I would assume you were in a car crash. Pine trees as far as the eye could see. Also, the dark night sky looked so beautiful. I was so happy to see it. It felt like 27 years ago since I had seen a sweet night sky. I stared out the window for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Then I saw something on the horizon. It moved slowly like a shallow wave. It was those hateful glowing orbs coming to suck me in again. The orbs don't need to be there. It could be anything else. Why would they put this person into a car crash and then allow them to survive only to come back again? The orbs are just such a distraction to this. This should, in my opinion, and this is my advice, and take this as my advice on what I would write here. Do as you will. The orbs are irrelevant to this. This is a family drama. The idea that your parents are gone, that's already traumatic. So that's the inciting incident. Okay, we go to this house. We find these letters. You find out that you had a family outside of what you already knew about, and that you thought your family was small. Turns out there were a lot more people, and that something happened, and you will never get an answer as to what that thing was. That is plenty enough horror. It doesn't need to be glowing orbs from outer space. The glowing orbs from outer space don't mean anything. What means something is there are people that are connected to you that you're not allowed to meet, and that there is some sort of forbidden secret in the family. That is horrifying. That is my honest advice. I know a lot of this wasn't very flattering, Logan 96, but those are my feelings, and I hope you got something out of this. I like significant parts of this story. I love the family drama aspect of it, and hope to see your future writings. Now on to our sponsor of the day, which is Ko-Fi. I have a Ko-Fi. Give me muns.